Hello, my name is Simon Double, and welcome to Inside the Rails, a monthly podcast for horse racing enthusiasts everywhere. And as ever, we've been sponsored by the RSA, the Racecourse Syndicates Association, so a big thank you to them. And also, as ever, I'm joined by my co-host, Phil Boyle from BG Racing. And it's normally at this point where I ask Phil how he is. I think I know the answer to this question, because I happen to know he had a 28-1 first time up winner at Lingfield yesterday, but I'm going to ask him anyway. Phil, how the devil are you?
Hi Simon, I'm very well, still on cloud nine, delighted to have had a winner, especially on a racecourse debut, and it was a little bit of an unexpected one, which is always the nicest ones. But before I talk about that, I'm supposed to use this point at the front of the podcast to encourage people to give us some good ratings and reviews. We're still trying to grow Inside the Rails, getting a little bit more listenership every month, but that growth is really fueled by you guys that are listening, by liking us and telling your friends all about us. So if you get the opportunity, please do.
So come on, Phil, tell me, what was it like having a winner with a crowd present?
Yeah, it was very different to the experience that there's been recently. And yeah, great to have some spectators back at the course. The course was still far from full. Nice to have some people coming through the gates, annual members and spectators. And it really does add to the atmosphere, that's for sure. And the courses are trying to do a little bit more for the owners now. Lingfield were offering us 6 owners' badges with sort of full lunches and all of the, owners and trainers, bar access, etc. But I had about 15 people wanting to go racing. As you might imagine, everybody's been starved of it for such a long time.
Yeah, sure.
So they gave us 12 badges, which were just general admission badges, but we were able to sit together out on the lawn and get together as a group outside. And 6 of us were allowed to go in the paddock to meet the trainer and the jockey, and we made sure that those guys outside the paddock got an opportunity to hear from the jockey as well. And Lingfield were great after the race. They got all of us into the presentation area after the horses had gone so that we could have our photo taken as a big group, albeit a socially distanced group. So it's not what it was before, and it's hopefully not where it will get to in the next few months in terms of the experience and more people being able to go. But it's definitely a big step forward, which I thought was really good.
And come on, you need to tell the listeners the name of the horse.
I do. The horse was called Far Too Beautiful. One of my shareholders insists that she was named after him, but she was actually named before we actually got her. And I suppose I ought to give credit to my co-host at this stage, because she was introduced to me by one Simon Double, I believe.
Yes, I can't claim credit for breeding the horse, but I do know the breeder, lovely guy called Richard Farley, and he likes to lease horses, as we talked about before. Often the breeders do. I knew that you happened to be looking for a horse for BG Racing, and there the introduction was made. And I think, you very kindly gave me a bottle of wine for the introduction, and I just want to know if there's another one on its way for the first time up win.
I shall have to check the prize money, what's left after the trainers and jockeys deductions and VAT and stuff like that, but I suspect there could be a drink in it for you sometime later, Simon. And I spoke to Richard last night, the breeder, Richard Farley. He's a lovely guy, and he was absolutely thrilled with the way that the filly had run yesterday. Obviously, from his perspective, longer term, he's looking at the possibilities of breeding from her, and the more success she has, the more valuable she is. But he's personally invested in his horses. I think he really loves the family that he's bred from, and he was absolutely thrilled. But I think you're being quite modest. Since our last podcast, you've had a winner too as well. Can you tell me a bit about that one?
Oh, go on then, go on. Dancing in the Woods. Funnily enough, he won first time up as a 2-year-old 2 years ago at Newmarket. So I do know that thrill of actually winning first time up. He had a good season last year, but he didn't actually win, but he was placed. And on his second run this year at Leicester 3 weeks ago, he was quite well supported, which sort of surprised me, because Dean Ivory, unfortunately, had been on the cold list for a little while. Hadn't had a winner for a little while, but the horse had been in good form, and he won an 8-runner contest, dropped him back actually to 6 furlongs, and I was delighted to say we had Holly Doyle on board, half of the Golden Couple, Tom Marquand, of course, being the other half, and in fact he rode the horse on Monday for me again. But the win was lovely. Unlike you, we didn't have spectators there, but I have to say Leicester did a pretty good job in looking after us. It was a bit strange trying to have a chat with Holly beforehand. She was in the paddock and I was sort of the other side, about 4 meters away, and we couldn't go in the winner's enclosure. I managed to get some nice photographs of the horse with the groom and Holly, and but they did give us a glass of champagne outside. It was quite funny because the hospitality guy, there weren't many people at Leicester, Phil. I don't know, 50, 60 people. They're all owners. So whichever horse won, it was fairly clear by the hullabaloo and shouting, who the winning connections were. So the guy came up to me after the race. He said, "Do I gather that you've just won a race?" I said, "Oh, was it that obvious?" And he said, "I'd love to take you for some champagne. How many of you are there?" And I said, "Well, there are 5 of us." He said, "Oh, that's great." He said, "because with the rule of 6, I can actually come and join you for a glass." So they were sticking to the rules really strictly, which is obviously the right thing to do. But no, it was lovely having a winner. And then, funnily enough, we went back to Leicester. This horse is a fast ground horse, and he won good to firm. We went again, same course and distance race on Monday, but it was good to soft. I'd always had my doubts as to whether he'd act upon it. But he ran a nice race. He was 4th, only beaten 2.5 lengths. And I talked about the Golden Couple. Holly was unable to ride for us. She was sent to Redcar by her agent. But we had Tom Marquand riding. And it was nice to see him as well. So, 2 more jockeys to add to the Solario Racing jockey portfolio.
Absolutely.
Well, look, we've given our listeners there 2 very recent personal experiences of syndicate successes. But I suppose we'd better talk about the classics. The last podcast we previewed 1,000 to 2,000 guineas. They've now happened. What did you make of the results, Phil? It was a bit of a case in terms of jockeys of the oldies doing very well, Kevin Manning and Frankie Dettori.
Yeah, absolutely, and not the sort of the market leaders either in either the 1,000 guineas or the 2,000 guineas. It was interesting to see, Jim Bolger, who's a prolific trainer from Ireland, been around for many years and does quite a lot of his own breeding as well. His horse Poetic Flair won the 2,000 guineas, as you say. Kevin Manning, one of the more senior jockeys in the weighing room, on the success or having the success there. And then Aidan O'Brien, we talked about Aidan O'Brien's runners last time. Well, he won the 1,000 guineas, but not with Santa Barbara, the favourite, but with the other horse, Mother Earth, with Frankie Dettori rode. We thought Santa Barbara looked a bit short in the betting last month, and so it proved. So, one for us there. But a couple of the sort of second strings or second tier horses in the betting winning there, but then both were beaten in the French equivalents of the Guineas races last weekend. Aidan O'Brien's St Mark's Basilica won the 2,000 guineas, beating Poetic Flair, and Mother Earth was beaten into second by a 38 to 1 shot, an even bigger surprise than Far Too Beautiful when Cour Samba won the French 1,000. So the success is being spread around a little bit. There's no real superstars emerging so far, but hopefully we might see some coming up, because we've got the Derby, the Oaks, Royal Ascot, all coming up in the next month. And I know you've been eagerly studying the trials and able to give us a few thoughts on what might win some of those races, Simon.
Yes, well, we've got the Oaks and the Derby just around the corner, and we've had the major trials for those. I'm not sure how informative some of them are, Phil, but let's have a look at the Oaks trials first of all. We had talking of a 28 to 1 shot, we had another one with Sherbet Lemon winning the Lingfield Oaks trial. I didn't think there was a particular fluke about that. In fact, funny enough, Jason Weaver actually gave it a bit of a mention about 5 minutes before the off. But Paul Mulrennan, he doesn't win too many of those sort of big races, but lovely to see a jockey like him winning a big race. And trainer Archie Watson. Look, it was a slowly run race. I'm not sure we've necessarily seen the Oaks winner from that. The Musadora Stakes at York, well, there I think was sheer jockeyship, don't you? With Ryan Moore, I think he rode the other jocks to sleep. One on Snowfall, a 14 to 1 shot, beat the favourite Noon Star comfortably by 3 3/4 lengths, and there was another half a length back to second favourite Tiona. Is the form reliable? Not sure. It was run at a bit of a crawl, nearly 7 seconds slower than standard. Nevertheless, you can only win and beat what's in front of you. And Snowfall did run in some good group races last year, both the Moyglare and Fillies Mile are Group 1 races, and it's 4-1 for the Oaks. The Cheshire Oaks, Roger Varian's Zayada, arguably unlucky second, beaten just a length. That's 8-1 for the Oaks. Of course, they often say the best trial for the Oaks is the English 1,000 Guineas. Now, you and I talked about Santa Barbara being very, very short, both for the 1,000 Guineas and the Oaks. It ran a nice race to fourth in the 1,000 Guineas. I thought it was a bit raw, really. Didn't have quite the experience of Mother Earth. And that's now as short as 7-4 for the Oaks. One also I think is quite interesting is Jane Chapel Hyam's Saffron Beach. That was second in the 1,000 Guineas. I don't know what you think, Phil, but I think it was always going to be more of an Oaks filly than a Guineas filly. That's 14-1. Any thoughts on any of those horses that I've mentioned for the Oaks?
Yeah, Saffron Beach is the one that I quite like, actually. I think she was quite well regarded before the Guineas and ran a solid race there. And as you say, the Oaks would look to suit her perhaps more than the Guineas would. So, yeah, for an each-way bet, she'd probably be my selection at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting to see, won't it? Is Santa Barbara the real deal? I've just got a feeling, actually, she could be something quite special. But we've talked about working men's prices before. 7-4 is pretty short, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Well, let's look at the Derby. We had the Lingfield Derby trial, won by Roger Varian and David Egan on Third Realm, a See the Stars colt. Now, that's interesting because it won on soft, having won a maiden at Nottingham on good to firm, so it's not ground dependent. That was cut to 8-1 from 14-1. He certainly put Adair in his place, and that's way out to 33-1 for the Derby. I don't think really that's got a chance now. The Dante at York, 10 furlong race, high definition, again, a well-touted Ballydoyle horse, went in as 13-8 favourite, only finished third. It had a few blood count problems, so it's obviously not had a totally uninterrupted preparation. But it was firmly put in its place by Magellan, who was second. And the winner, Hurricane Lane, that remains unbeaten after 3 runs. That heads to the Derby as a general 7-1 chance. I think that's got pretty solid each-way claims. But probably the main trial that's really been appointed to this year's Derby is the Derrinstown Derby trial, again over 10 furlongs. Not historically a great guide necessary to a Derby winner, but a very impressive winner in Bolshoi Ballet. Absolutely trounced its field by 6 lengths and is a worthy favourite. I think it's 7-4, 15-8. Other horses to mention possibly Mo Harfith for the Shadwell, Jim Crowley, Willie Haggis combination connections. That won the Betfair listed race over 10 furlongs at Newmarket. That's an 8-1 shot. And a horse for Ed Dunlop, John Leaper. That's 8-1, having won the Fairway Stakes, also over 1 mile, 2 furlongs. So any thoughts from Phil Boyle on the Derby betting and the picture?
No, the Derby's, I'm finding the Derby a little bit tricky to get into at the moment. I must admit, it's probably one for me for the day of the race. I, haven't really been able to sort of find one at my sort of prices that I'm particularly keen on at the moment. So, yeah, I'll probably have another look on the morning of the race. Yeah, and apart from, we've talked about the excitement of getting owners and spectators back racing. That should help with the Derby and the Oaks, getting some crowds in on Epsom Downs. I'm sure that'll make for a brilliant atmosphere there at the start of June. And of course, the other exciting news at the start of June is a horse racing movie coming to cinemas on June the 4th. Who would have thought it? It's a movie called Dream Horse about a real life syndicate success story. A horse called Dream Alliance that was owned by a small group of people from a Welsh village that went on to win the Welsh National. And I'm delighted to say that in an Inside the Rails scoop, we've managed to secure an interview with the director, Euros Lynn, haven't we, Simon?
I'm delighted to say BAFTA-winning film and television director Euros Lynn is on the line for us now. Welcome, Euros, to Inside the Rails. Thank you for joining us. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well, thanks. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great. Well, we really appreciate it. Now, I know you've got a busy schedule today doing lots of publicity interviews. As somebody who loves racing, works in syndication, but is also a big film buff, I'm very excited about this film, Dream Horse. But before we go on to find out what the film's about, there's a saying in film and television, don't work with children and animals. Is this the first time you've worked with horses and indeed racehorses?
Definitely the first time I've worked with racehorses, and an incredibly steep learning curve for me, because as somebody who's